She married the love of her life, a soldier who promised to return. But after he was declared dead in war, she stood at the altar with another man. Then the church doors opened, and what happened next left everyone frozen in shock. Stay tuned because you are about to watch a beautiful story and find out what happened next. Hello, family. Welcome to Tales Haven. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting stories. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. The morning light gently spilled into the little white house on Willow Street, but inside, it felt like winter in Isabel Carter's heart. She sat quietly on the wooden porch swing, a cup of untouched tea in her hands. The steam had faded, just like the warmth in her eyes. Her gaze stayed fixed on the mailbox at the end of the path, the same mailbox she had checked every morning for the last 9 months, even when she knew there would be nothing in it. Each morning brought the same desperate hope. Maybe today there'll be a letter from Liam. Her husband, Sergeant Liam Carter, had been deployed overseas almost a year ago. He wasn't just her husband. He was her best friend, her protector, her first and only love. They had been married for only 6 months when he got the call. "I'll be back before you even miss me," he had whispered, kissing her forehead as she tried to smile through tears. But she had missed him every day, every hour, every second. At first, he would call once a week. Then the calls became once a month. And then silence. Just silence. One cold afternoon, a black government car pulled up in front of her house. 2 uniformed officers stepped out, their faces stiff with pity. That was the day she received the first letter. "We regret to inform you that Sergeant Liam Carter has gone missing during a classified operation. He is presumed killed in action." Presumed. The word haunted her. They didn't find his body. They didn't offer proof. Just an assumption. But Isabel wasn't ready to believe it. Not without a body. Not without goodbye. Every night, she left the porch light on. Just in case. She cooked his favorite meals, even though no one ate them. She folded his t-shirts and placed them neatly back in the drawer he never opened. His side of the bed stayed untouched. And every day, she whispered to herself, "He's not gone. He'll come back. I know he will." But that morning, as the birds chirped and the sky turned gold, the sound of the mailbox closing snapped her out of her daze. The postman waved from a distance. She didn't wave back. She walked slowly to the mailbox, her heart pounding, praying it would be a sign. A mistake. A letter from Liam. Instead, she found a new envelope with a thick military seal. Her fingers trembled as she tore it open on the porch. This time it wasn't vague. After a full search and investigation, the Department of Defense has concluded that Sergeant Liam Carter is officially declared deceased. You are now eligible for benefits processing and final arrangements. There was no space for hope in this letter. Isabel's hand went numb. Her teacup slipped from her fingers and shattered against the porch floor. She fell to her knees. "No," she whispered. "No, this can't be real. This can't be real." Her neighbor, Mrs. Elkins, an older widow who had seen too many funerals in her lifetime, ran across the yard. She didn't ask questions. She just knelt beside Isabel and wrapped her arms around her shaking body. That night, Isabel didn't sleep. She lay on the living room floor, surrounded by wedding pictures, her white dress still hanging in the closet, waiting for a day that would never come. She pulled one photo close to her heart. Liam in uniform, grinning, confident, alive. "I waited for you," she cried softly. "I waited." Weeks passed. Friends stopped checking in every day. Life, somehow, kept moving, even though hers felt frozen. But then came Daniel. He had served with Liam in high school and was now a teacher at the local community college. He began showing up with groceries, fixing her broken door, leaving kind notes on her doorstep. He never asked for anything. He just stayed. At first, Isabel resisted. But grief has a way of making space for comfort. Daniel's presence was steady, soft, healing. Months passed, and one evening, while walking through the park where she and Liam had once danced under the streetlight, Daniel stopped beside her. "I know I can never be him," he said gently. And I would never try. But if there's even a small part of you that wants to try again, to feel alive again, I'll be here. Tears welled in her eyes. She didn't answer. But she didn't walk away either. A year later, she accepted his proposal. It wasn't the kind of proposal with violins and fireworks. It was quiet, honest, real. They chose June 15th, the date she and Liam had always talked about renewing their vows on one day. Isabel stood in front of the mirror that morning, wearing a simple white dress. It wasn't the same gown she had married Liam in, but it held the same weight. As she looked at herself, her hand moved to her neck, where she still wore Liam's wedding ring on a chain. "I'll always love you," she whispered. "But I have to live." Music began to play from inside the small church. She took a deep breath and walked down the aisle, not with excitement, but with quiet acceptance. Daniel stood at the altar, smiling, ready to begin a new chapter. The pastor opened his Bible. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered." Creak. The church doors swung open with a long creak. Heads turned, and a gasp echoed across the room. Because standing there in a dusty, wrinkled uniform was a man with familiar eyes and a scar down his cheek. Liam Carter, alive, and staring straight at her. The room froze. Every breath in the church seemed to stop. The soft wedding music had faded mid-note. The pastor's hands trembled, and Daniel's smile slowly disappeared. All eyes were locked on the man at the door. Liam Carter. Dust clung to the edges of his uniform. A long, thin scar stretched across his cheek. He looked like a man who had been through war and somehow fought his way back, not just to a country, but to the woman he loved. His eyes were red. His chest rose and fell heavily, as if just standing there took all the strength he had left. But they weren't tired eyes. They were desperate, focused. On her. Isabel's heart stopped beating. She didn't move. She couldn't move. She just stood there at the altar, staring at the man she had buried in her heart, the man she had mourned, cried for, dreamed about, prayed for, the man she was told was dead. Now he was standing just a few steps away, alive. "Isabel," Liam's voice cracked as he stepped forward. She still didn't say a word. The bouquet dropped from her hands, falling to the floor with a soft thud. Daniel looked at her, confused and stunned. His eyes filled with pain, but he said nothing. The guests whispered among themselves. "Is that him? Didn't they say he was dead? Oh my God, this is like something from a movie." Liam took another step into the church. His boots echoed on the polished floor. He didn't look at anyone else. Only her. "Isabel," he said again, louder this time, voice shaking. "It's me." That voice. That face. That name on his uniform. There was no doubt. This was Liam. Her Liam. The same man who kissed her under the stars the night before his deployment. The man who promised to come home. And now here he was. But too late. Her eyes welled with tears as she whispered, How are you alive?" Her voice broke the silence. Liam paused a few steps from the altar. He looked around at the decorations. The white flowers. The candles. The man standing beside her. Then his gaze returned to her face. "I escaped," he said slowly. "I was taken hostage. It was months before I even got access to a radio. I tried everything to reach you. But by the time I finally got to a safe base, I was told I had been declared dead." He let out a broken laugh, one full of pain, disbelief, and heartbreak. "They buried me, Isabel, while I was still alive." Isabel's knees buckled slightly, but she caught herself on the edge of the altar. Daniel stepped closer, instinctively reaching out to steady her, but gently pulled his hand back. He knew this moment wasn't his. Liam's voice softened. "I didn't want to ruin anything. I didn't even know you were getting married today. I just needed to see you, to know if you had moved on." His eyes fell to her dress. Her bouquet. The ring Daniel had just slipped on her finger minutes earlier. She followed his gaze. Her lips trembled. Then Daniel spoke. "I didn't know he was alive," he said calmly, stepping forward. His voice was respectful, but heavy. "I would never have done this if I knew. Liam nodded. I believe you. The three of them stood frozen, past, present, and future colliding at the altar. Isabel blinked rapidly, her chest rising and falling as panic and confusion swirled inside her. I don't know what to do, she whispered. I don't even know what to feel. Daniel gently placed his hand on her shoulder. You don't have to choose anything right now, he said softly. Just breathe.
Take your time.
This is your moment. Tears slid down her cheeks. I loved you, she said, looking at Daniel. You were there when I needed someone. You saved me. Then she turned back to Liam. But I never stopped loving you either. I never truly let you go. The weight of it all was too much. Suddenly, she turned, and without another word, she ran down the aisle, past Liam, past the guests, out the big wooden doors. The warm wind hit her face as she stepped outside. She kept running, the sound of the church fading behind her. Her white dress billowed as she ran toward the place where her heart had always gone whenever life became too heavy. The old wooden bridge by the riverbank. Inside the church, silence returned. Liam stood motionless, his hands shaking slightly. Daniel looked at him. I don't hate you, he said quietly. You came back from the dead. No one expects to compete with that. Liam's eyes stayed on the door she had just disappeared through. I didn't come to compete, he replied. I came to bring her peace. Daniel nodded once, then stepped down from the altar. I hope she finds it. And with that, both men left the church, each walking in different directions. Not chasing her, not forcing her, because they knew only she could find her own way home. The wind blew gently through the trees as Isabel reached the edge of the old wooden bridge by the river. She was out of breath, not just from running, but from the weight in her chest. She clutched the wooden railing with both hands, trying to calm the storm inside her. The river flowed quietly below, just like it always had. This was where Liam had once asked her to marry him. He had stood right here, in his army jacket, shaking slightly, holding out a ring with trembling fingers. She had cried then from joy. Now she cried from confusion. Behind her, she heard slow footsteps approaching on the gravel path. She didn't turn. She already knew who it was. Liam. He walked softly, not wanting to startle her. He stopped a few feet away and waited. I figured I'd find you here, he said gently. She nodded, still facing the water. This place never changed. Neither did I, he said quietly. At least, not in a way that matters. She finally turned to face him. He looked so different, yet so familiar. Thinner. Tired. A long scar curved just under his cheekbone. But his eyes were still the same. Strong. Loving. Searching. I didn't believe it, she whispered. When they told me you were dead, I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to die, Liam replied. And every day they kept me locked in that dark place, I thought about you. You were the reason I stayed alive. Her lips trembled. Why didn't they tell me you were alive? I tried, he said. The embassy said it would take time. I wrote letters, gave names, begged them to contact you. But I had no idea about the wedding. About Daniel. He stepped a little closer, but still gave her space. When I saw you today in that dress at the altar, I wanted to turn around and walk away. I didn't want to hurt you. Then why didn't you? She asked, voice shaking. Because I had to see for myself, he replied. I had to know if you were truly happy, or if a part of you still remembered me. Silence hung between them. Isabel sat on the edge of the bridge, her hands shaking as she pulled something from under her dress. A necklace, and hanging from it, Liam's wedding ring. I wore this every day, she whispered. Even when people said I needed to move on. Even when I said yes to Daniel. I still wore it. Liam's eyes filled with tears. I didn't come to take you back, he said. I came because I still love you. But I'll understand if your heart belongs to someone else now. Isabel looked up at him, her voice soft. You were my whole world, Liam. And when they told me you were gone, I didn't know how to live anymore. I was drowning. And Daniel pulled you out. She nodded. He never tried to replace you, she continued. He just stood beside me in the dark. He gave me reasons to breathe again. I didn't plan to love him. It just happened. Liam sat beside her, close enough to feel her warmth, but not enough to touch. And now, he asked. I don't know, she said honestly. I feel like I'm standing between two lives. One with memories that never died, and one with a future that was beginning to grow. Liam nodded slowly, swallowing hard. I don't blame you, he said. You had to survive without me. Just like I had to survive to get back to you. He stood up, brushing the dust off his uniform. I won't ask you to choose now. That wouldn't be fair. But I'll be in town for a few days. If you decide to stay with Daniel, I'll disappear. Forever. You won't hear from me again. Isabel rose to her feet too. Don't go yet, she said softly. I'm not ready to lose you again. He looked at her, his eyes searching hers for meaning. She stepped forward and gently touched the side of his face, right over the scar. I just need time. Time to figure out what my heart is really saying. Liam closed his eyes and leaned into her hand for a moment. Then he nodded. I'll wait, he whispered. No matter what you decide, I'll be okay. Because I got to see you again. That alone was worth surviving for. He slowly turned and walked away, not looking back. And Isabel stood there alone on the bridge, her heart torn between the man who had returned from the grave and the man who gave her life when she thought hers was over. The next morning, Isabel sat by her window in silence. She hadn't slept all night. Her heart and mind were pulling in two different directions. In one corner was the man who returned from war, the love she never stopped dreaming about, Liam. In the other corner was Daniel, the man who helped her survive when everything fell apart, the man who never gave up on her. She stared out at the quiet street of Maple Falls. The trees were still. The sky was soft gray. Everything looked normal outside, but nothing felt normal inside. A soft knock broke her thoughts. She hesitated, then walked slowly to the door. When she opened it, her breath caught. It was Daniel. He looked calm but tired, like a man who had already made peace with something painful. He wasn't holding flowers or begging. He was holding a small envelope, old and slightly torn, with no stamp. I'm not here to make things harder, Daniel said gently. I found this in my mail slot this morning. He handed it to her carefully. Isabel looked down at the envelope. Her name was written in messy, shaky handwriting, but she recognized it. Her hands trembled. Liam. She opened it slowly. Inside was a short, handwritten letter on plain, crumpled paper. My Isabel, if you're reading this, it means I'm alive, or trying to be. I don't know if this will reach you. I don't know what day it is. I don't even know if the world thinks I'm dead. But I'm writing this because I need you to know something. I never stopped loving you. Not even once. I think about you every second. I whisper your name in the dark to keep from going crazy. I see your face every time I close my eyes. I don't know if I'll make it home. I don't know what the world will look like if I do. But if I don't come back soon, I hope you find a way to smile again. I hope someone brings you peace, even if it's not me. But if by some miracle I make it back, please wait for me just a little longer. I'm still trying. Your husband always, Liam. Isabel pressed the letter to her chest, her body shaking with silent sobs. Tears streamed down her face, not just from pain, but from the truth. Liam had never given up on her. He had written this while held hostage, beaten, alone, and yet his heart had still reached for her. She looked up at Daniel, her voice cracking. I didn't know. I never got this. I believe you, Daniel said, his own eyes moist. It was lost. Or delayed. Who knows? But I thought you deserved to read it. She nodded slowly, clutching the letter. I feel like I failed both of you, she whispered. I promised Liam I'd wait, but I said yes to you. I was just trying to breathe. Daniel took a slow breath and stepped forward. You didn't fail anyone, he said quietly. You survived something that should have broken you. You let me in when your heart was still bleeding, and I'll always be grateful for that. He smiled, though it hurt. I love you, Isabel. I always will. But you don't owe me your future. You owe yourself your truth. A sob escaped her throat. I don't want to hurt you, she whispered. I know, he said. But staying with me out of guilt would hurt us both more. He gently touched her arm. I let you go, Isabel. I want you to be happy, even if that means watching you walk into someone else's arms. She stood there in silence as Daniel gave her one last look, then walked away without asking for anything more. And this time, it was her who didn't stop him. Later that evening, Isabel walked alone to Maple Falls Military Cemetery. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the graves. She found Liam standing near a black marble plaque, with his own name carved into it. Sergeant Liam Carter, fallen but never forgotten. He stared at it quietly, hands in his pockets. She stepped closer and said softly, You didn't fall. You came back. He turned slowly, eyes wide when he saw her. I read your letter, she said, holding it out. His breath caught. I wrote that not knowing if I'd live another day, he said. I know, she whispered, but it found me. They stood in silence for a moment. Then she stepped closer and looked into his eyes. I need you to know something, she said. I loved Daniel. He was gentle. He helped me breathe again. But with you, I feel alive. Liam swallowed hard, his voice barely above a whisper. Are you saying? I'm saying I choose you, Isabel said, tears filling her eyes. I've always chosen you. Even when the world told me to let go, I still held on. Liam's voice cracked. I don't deserve you. She smiled gently. You survived a war just to come back for me. I don't need perfect, Liam. I just need you. He stepped forward and pulled her into his arms. They stood there, wrapped in each other, with the setting sun behind them, right beside a stone that once marked the end. But now it marked a new beginning. The wind moved softly through the cemetery trees as Liam held Isabel tightly in his arms. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. For the first time in over a year, their hearts were no longer chasing each other. They had finally caught up. When they slowly pulled apart, Isabel wiped her tears and smiled. Let's go home, she said. Liam looked unsure. Are you sure? She nodded. I want to begin again. With you. That night, the small house on Willow Street came alive again. It was the same home Isabel had once wept in, but this time, laughter echoed in the halls. She made tea. Liam sat across from her at the kitchen table, just watching her with quiet joy. The steam from the cups rose slowly, but neither of them touched it. He was watching her as if he was afraid she would vanish. She was memorizing his face like she was trying to catch up on all the lost days. You've changed, she said softly. So have you, he replied. He reached out and gently took her hand. Tell me everything I missed, he whispered. She smiled. All of it, she teased. He nodded. Every second. And so they sat into the night, sharing stories of pain, healing, fear, and hope. They cried. They laughed. They even sat in silence and just held hands because sometimes silence says everything. Over the next few weeks, Liam and Isabel worked to rebuild their life, slowly and with patience. Some days were easy. Other days, not so much. Liam had nightmares. He would wake up gasping, sweating, eyes full of fear. But Isabel was always there, wrapping her arms around him, whispering, You're home. You're safe now. Sometimes, she would cry quietly in the bathroom, not because she regretted her decision, but because healing was not a straight line. Letting go of Daniel's kindness still hurt, but they kept showing up for each other, day by day. They went to therapy together at the VA center. They walked through the farmers market on Saturdays. They began planting a small garden in their backyard. Love didn't feel like fireworks anymore. It felt like peace. One evening, as the sun set behind their home, Liam brought Isabel outside to the backyard. Fairy lights had been strung from one tree to another. There was a blanket on the grass and candles flickering in glass jars. She blinked, confused. What is all this? She asked. He smiled nervously. I've been waiting for the right moment. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Isabel's hand flew to her mouth. I know we've already been married once, he said, but that was before everything. Before the war. Before the silence. before we lost and found each other again. He opened the box to reveal a new, simple gold ring. I don't want to start over. I want to begin again as we are now. Stronger, braver, still a little broken, but healing together. He dropped to one knee, his eyes never leaving hers. Will you marry me again, Isabel? Not just as the wife I left behind, but as the woman I came home to. Her eyes filled with tears. Her voice trembled. Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger and stood. And under the soft glow of backyard lights, Isabel kissed her husband again. Not the kiss of a fairy tale, not the kiss of a movie, but the kiss of two people who had lost everything and still chose love anyway. A few weeks later, they stood under a small arch in their backyard. Only a few close friends and neighbors were present. There were no photographers, no grand decorations, just honesty, simplicity, and a love that had survived the impossible. Isabel wore a soft, flowing white dress. Liam wore a clean black suit with his military pins. They held hands and renewed their vows, not for the world, but for each other. Daniel was there too, standing quietly in the back, a gentle smile on his face. No bitterness, just peace. When Isabel saw him afterward, she hugged him tightly. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For helping me remember how to breathe. Daniel smiled and nodded. Now go fly, he said. And she did. The stars twinkled above Liam and Isabel as they sat quietly on their front porch. The night was warm and calm, but their hearts were full. Isabel leaned her head on Liam's shoulder. His arm wrapped around her, strong and sure. After everything they had been through, the war, the waiting, the pain, the choice, this quiet peace felt like a miracle. Liam closed his eyes and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." Isabel smiled. "Thank you for finding your way back to me." The porch light flickered gently as the wind rustled the trees. But deep in Isabel's heart, a new kind of flutter had begun. A feeling she hadn't told him about yet. Not until she was sure. 2 weeks later, Liam stood in front of a group of young military recruits at the Maple Falls Army base. He had been invited to speak, not just as a soldier, but as a survivor. The crowd sat in silence as he shared his story. I was captured, tortured, forgotten, he said. But what kept me alive wasn't my training, it was love. He looked out across the room and found Isabel, sitting in the back with a small, proud smile on her face. When I was declared dead, the world moved on. But the woman I loved never really did. She kept my memory alive, even when I couldn't speak for myself. And when I finally came home, she chose me again. He paused, his voice catching. I'm not here today because I'm strong. I'm here because someone loved me back to life. The room exploded in applause. When the ceremony ended, Liam walked over to Isabel, who was holding something behind her back. What are you hiding? He asked playfully. She smiled shyly. I went to the doctor yesterday, she said, handing him a white envelope. He raised an eyebrow and opened it. Inside was a black and white photo, fuzzy, but clear enough to make his hands shake. A tiny ultrasound image. A small, growing life. Their baby. Liam stared at it in disbelief. He looked up at her, his mouth slightly open, eyes filled with wonder. Is this real? He whispered. Isabel nodded, tears already in her eyes. You're going to be a dad. Liam dropped to his knees right there on the sidewalk, pressing the photo to his heart. He closed his eyes and whispered, Thank you, God. Then he looked up at her with tears running down his cheeks. I thought I'd lost everything. But you gave me everything back. And now this. He gently placed his hands on her belly and kissed it. I'll protect this child with everything I have, just like I fought to come back to you. Isabel placed her hand over his. I know you will. Months passed, and on a rainy spring morning, Liam rushed into the small hospital room with his boots still wet and his uniform jacket half-buttoned. Isabel was lying in bed, smiling tiredly. Wrapped in her arms was a tiny baby, soft, peaceful, and perfect. A girl, she whispered. She came early, but she's strong. Like her dad. Liam approached slowly, tears already in his eyes. He looked down at the baby, her tiny fingers curled around Isabel's thumb. "What should we name her?" he asked. Isabel looked at him, smiling. "You choose." Liam thought for a moment, then said, "Hope." Isabel's eyes glistened. He nodded slowly. "Because when the world said I was gone, hope kept me alive. And now she's here, a piece of that same hope." He kissed Isabel's forehead, then leaned down and kissed his daughter's tiny hand. "I'm never leaving again," he whispered. "Not ever." That night, the small hospital room was quiet. Isabel held baby Hope close to her chest, while Liam sat beside them, wide awake, unable to stop looking at them. He had been a soldier, a prisoner, a ghost. But now he was home. A husband, a father, a man who had been lost, but found everything again. Not because of war, not because of luck, but because of love. Love that waited, love that forgave, love that fought through the silence and chose peace. And as the rain tapped gently on the window, Liam closed his eyes, smiled, and whispered, "This is my forever." That brings us to the end of this video. If you find this story worth watching, kindly subscribe to my channel for more stories, like, and share this video to your friends and loved ones. You can also comment what you feel about the story under the comment section. Thanks for watching.